Everybody, thanks for watching. So real quick before I get into this video, just want to say something about the shooting, the killing, I should say, that happened here in Las Vegas last night. Finney, the legend, who was a YouTuber, and his wife was shot and killed right on the strip, right in front of the Bellagio by Sin City Manny, who, they had a long-term beef between each other. And, it's already videos that was out there of Manny looking for him, and supposedly something to do with him trying to get his YouTube channel shut down or getting it shut down. A lot of back and forth stuff, but nobody should lose their life over a YouTube, beef. People take social media way too seriously. For the most part, people that record, most YouTubers in the city I follow, I didn't know this dude or what have you, but whatever the situation was, cost this man his life. And he was shot right in front of the Bellagio and killed in front of the Bellagio in public. At night, around 10 o'clock, I was literally up the street when it happened with my family, and traffic had to basically come to a halt, and people had to U-turn to get away from the crime scene. But I was literally like minutes away from when it happened. So, it kind of hit home a little bit. But, you guys got to be careful out here. Anybody that's out here recording, I mean, if you do this or anything, I mean, it's just not worth getting into beefs with people and you don't understand their mental state or what they've gone through or what they probably will do or what have you. I always keep a gun with me, no matter what. So it is what it is. But, be safe, protect yourself. Those two people didn't have to be shot and killed like that. I mean, the dude, he turned himself in, but I mean, he's going to spend the rest of his life in prison over what? Like, it's just dumb. But yeah, crazy situation. A few people hit me up about it. And yeah, I know all about it. I was like literally right there, probably minutes away from when it happened. But yeah, crazy situation. Just, be safe out there. And I'm going to do this video from the car. No, I actually switched cars and forgot my tripod. But yeah, let's get into this video. Also, real quick for everybody. So the court case for my book is getting ready to come up, right? So it's going to be the end of it. Everything is going to be done. It's going to be a ruling in my favor. I'm like 1,000% sure that's what's going to happen. So once that ruling happens, right? If you order a book, right? I know who you guys are. The majority of you are. But I'm going to announce this. And anybody who ordered a book who's been waiting for a book, I'm going to email you guys, and you guys can email me and let me know who's waiting for the book. I'll go and match it up and see who is legit and who's not. And you guys are going to get a book. You have to pay absolutely nothing. Book's going to ship to you guys. And I may be contacting, I'm going to contact everybody. An email is going to go out to everyone to confirm that you guys still have the same mailing address. So once this happens and the ruling is in my favor, we're going to release these books. And I also have 2 new books that are already set to go out. You guys are going to see those books go out for sale because I'll be able to release books again. And books are going to go out. And books are going to go up for sale as well. So that'll be the end of that. And I'll finally be able to release books. I'll also be able to ship flash drives. Again, the reason why I haven't really gotten to that because I can't do anything because my shipping deal is caught up in this whole thing. So I have a shipping deal with Shippo. I talked about this before. It's called Shippo, like Hippo. And that is kind of tied up into this whole thing. And once all that stuff is done and released in my favor, I'll get that deal back. So I don't take a massive hit in shipping this stuff out, and I don't lose money or what have you. So all this stuff is going to happen within the next couple of weeks or sooner. And when it happens, books will release. You guys will see books go back up for sale. And then that'll be the end of that. And we won't have to deal with this shit again because, yeah, it was crazy. Learning experience, but it is what it is. But I'm happy to be able to announce this finally, that the nightmare is going to be over and everybody's going to get books and books are going to go back out for sale. So I appreciate everybody. We've all been on this whole fucking thing. This whole process has been long. It's been crazy, but that's how it goes with court and a lot of nonsense. But I appreciate everybody's patience on that. And the people who stuck up with me, I told you guys, we're going to get to this point eventually, and it's coming. And I'll be able to put all this stuff out and shut up all the fucking haters who, conspiracy theorists, people who thought there's some type of shit going on. Don't you think I would have been put books out? I would have been selling books if it was, if it wasn't something wrong, of course. So I've written 3 new books since then. 2 are going to go out. The 3rd one I'm still working on. I'm finishing up, you might as well say. So you guys will see that. But yeah, let's get into this video. So now you guys understand, like I'm going to talk about everything. I cover everything on this channel, all kinds of topics. But one of the things I've been putting information out a lot on is genetics, specifically that of African people, right? So you have a large group of people out there, namely the Black Hebrew Israelites and some other people who, ignorantly speaking, that African American DNA and African DNA are different, right? So it's a lot of people putting that narrative out there, and they're putting that information out there in the wrong capacity, the wrong context. Now, I'm here to tell you straight up, they're correct. They're right. Yes, African American DNA and African DNA are different. But guess what? African DNA and other African DNA are different as well. In fact, nobody has the same DNA as anybody else unless you're a identical twin. And there's still some subtle differences, right? So when you're talking about DNA, you got to be specific, right? Because what is DNA really? DNA is a bunch of, information. And, to make up a complete organism takes a genome, right? And DNA is basically what? 3 billion pairs of codes, basically, that's going to give you a genome, which is going to make up that organism. So what are we talking about specifically as far as genetics? Now, it's a lot you have to understand when it comes to DNA and how that whole thing works. But my whole point in all this is to get people to understand, well, one, their point is to say, we have different DNA than Africans. Therefore, we are something different in nature, right? Not understanding how that came to be. And that's my whole beef with the whole thing is you guys can say, yeah, a different DNA, but different DNA how? How does that take place? And then you have to understand, one, everybody has different DNA. If you're not an identical twin, you're going to have different DNA. And you're going to have different DNA because the genetics or, the food you eat, the climate you grew up in or evolved in is going to be different. If you're in a certain geographical location where it's a warmer climate or cooler climate, your DNA is going to vary depending on the foods that you eat, because when you change your diet or you have a different diet, the foods that you eat can basically send signals to your cells and to your body or what have you to shut off different cells, to shut off different traits, different things from evolving or developing in your body, right? So this is going to happen with different people around the world who eat different foods that are in different diets, right? So if that's the case, then of course, throughout time, you're going to have a different diet than other people. Now, here's another thing that a lot of people don't understand. You have migration patterns, right? So when you have a migration and you have people leave out of a certain geographical area, right, where it's a warmer climate or a colder climate, no matter what it is, if you leave that area and you migrate into a different area with different people who eat different food and you mix in with these people, it's going to alter the DNA. That offspring is going to be a little bit different, right? And you're going to have a different look. Now, this may be a big shock to many of you, and a lot of you African Americans are not going to like this. But almost everybody, every African American in America has European DNA. You don't like it, go look it up. I'm pretty sure that you have some part of European DNA within you. And there's been studies on this, which I'm going to get into in a little bit, that prove this. So one, you got to think about migration patterns. You got to think about before transatlantic slave trade, and even go back before the sub-Saharan or the Saharan slave trade, the Arab slave trade, I should say, where Europeans and black people mingled. We know the Greeks were in Africa. We know, in Rome, there was black and white. We know in a lot of European countries, there was mixed. It was a mixture, right? So there was a lot of fucking going on. It's a lot of mixing going on. And clear as day, go look at your cousins. If you got a light-skinned cousin, that's probably why your cousin light-skinned or why you're light-skinned. A lot of people just don't want to think about that, or, because when we think about back then, we think about slavery, right? We don't think about before slavery. When we think about back then, we think about, segregation, racism. Oh, no way, black and white people was messing around. Yeah, they was fucking. And they was creating babies. So you guys got to understand, like, in your bloodline somewhere, and then you got to think about the rape, everything that happened with slavery, what was going on with slave master, and all that stuff that was going on. Not to mention your ancestor could have went to another country, a tropical country, any type of scenario. But if you got light-skinned cousins, there's more light-skinned people in your black family then that's probably what it is, right? So you got to understand that as well. So there's a lot of mixing, and that would cause a DNA change as well. So when people say, well, African Americans look different, we don't look like those Africans. Oh, that's why, nigga. You don't look like them because, one, climate, which climate change has an effect on DNA. Climate change can have a major effect on sending signals to the body or telling your cells to not do something. As I talked about before, when you talk about the Ice Age and, thousands of years of this, and basically nature is saying, hey, you don't need this big nostrils anymore because you're going to be breathing in too much cold air. So we need to make those nostrils smaller, right? You don't need the woolly hair anymore, right? And so nature is going to change you, and make it conducive to your environment and make you a better genetic or fit in more with your environment genetically, right? That's how nature works. God works in mysterious ways, right? They say. So it's all these things you got to look at as to the reason why our DNA is different from African people. Now, does that mean that, the Moors wasn't black? Does that mean, kings around the world wasn't black? If you were an African king, does that mean anything different, that African Americans are not the same DNA as African people? Does that change anything? It doesn't change anything. And when we're talking about the same DNA, first of all, understand this as well. We're talking about a small variation, a small change. We are still 75 to 85% African. So predominantly your genetics, your genome is African. So whatever mixed in shit that's mixed in, that's what it is. Now, I did the whole DNA and all that stuff years ago. I know we have Thai in our bloodline, a lot of Asian, a lot of Africans. We have a lot, right? So it is what it is. You don't control what your ancestors did back in the day. You probably didn't even know what they did. But there was mixing in throughout the world. And I broke this whole thing down on how the Aryans, Europeans, systematically did this and went across the world to mix in. What you got to think about is this. Why our ancestors? What was special about our ancestors in that we are African Americans and we were here? Why did they choose to mix in with us and then we see Africa left alone the way that it is, right? What was so special about our ancestors, right? And I got into this whole thing that they chose to mix in with us and breed with us, right? So that gets into Tartaria, the Moors, kingdoms, and everything I talked about in plenty of videos on how we know black people were already in the Americas, and we know already West Africa, kingdoms in Africa already existed, and it was already mingling with these Europeans and mixing in with these Europeans. And it's not a myth about the, marrying into families. That's a real thing. They did this in Africa as well. When there was two rival, let's say families, and there was a war for whatever reason, to broker the peace or keep the peace, one person would marry into the family, or whenever it was some type of major business deal, they would marry into the family because it's the best way to do it. Because now we're family. Like, you're not going to go against the family. And as I talked about in the previous video, family is everything. So in order for me to feel comfortable that you're not going to stab us in the back because you have no relationship, well, we're going to have a family union, and this daughter is going to marry this son, and then they're going to have a child, and that's going to bring both families together. Now, this happened back in the day, and we know what happened after that. Execute Order 66, right? Once the Europeans married into these black kingdoms, they stabbed them all in the back and took over and covered everything the fuck up, right? But again, in no way African Americans having different DNA from Africans changes anything. It doesn't change any of that. Now, here's the thing, we don't know for sure that all black people originated in Africa, right? We could have originated somewhere else, and whatever happened, we somehow, ended up in Africa. But the thing is this, where's any proof of that? So, of course, all of the evidence shows that we originate from Africa. Now, please be my guest and find me a landmass, that's like Africa, meaning predominantly black people. So stands the reason that that's where we probably came from, since it's the largest continent of, African population, of the black population. Now, for people who don't like that for whatever reason, and want to distance themselves from Africa for whatever reason, that's your beef. It is what it is about that. But that doesn't change what you are. It doesn't change your genome. It doesn't change your genetics or, whatever you think you are. You're still African. You're still majority African, right? No way around that. So whatever you think you are, think again, because you're African. So I don't understand what is this hatred for African people by African people, by African Americans, whatever the fuck that is, right? So you're still a nigga. You're still black. It doesn't matter what you want to call yourself. This is how they see you. Plain and simple. So the thing is, you got to understand the genetic part of it. And I've seen all these black Hebrews with the E1, B1, and all this other stupid, dumb shit they want to come out with. It doesn't mean nothing. It doesn't change anything. It doesn't change what we know that's proven about genetics, right? About us. And I don't care what nobody say. I mean, I look like an African. You go to Africa, you look like those black people. Now, they may look different from you as far as physical features or structures, but that's anybody. I mean, you go to St. Louis or you go down south, you're going to look different from them down south niggas. You're going to look different from those West Coast guys. You're going to look different. I mean, it is what it is. Go to Puerto Rico. It's dark skin there as well. It doesn't matter where you go. At the end of the day, it changes nothing. You're black. The majority of you is black. Whatever your ancestors mixed in with, it is what it is, right? So, one, there's so much more to all of it genetically, especially as it pertains to African people. And I talked about before, understanding what DNA is, and DNA is basically, genetic instructions, right? We have 3 billion base pairs, right? 23 pairs of chromosomes. That's going to give us the genome, right? I talked about this in the previous video. So there's so much information in DNA, but until you get that 3 billion base pairs and those 23 pairs of chromosomes and all those instructions in that DNA, which can be so much coming from, family, until you get that and you get a complete genome, which is the complete genome is going to give you the whole physical makeup of that organism, which, be us or what have you. And it's so many different things in there. Of course, no two are going to be alike unless you're identical twins, as I said. And there's also still going to be some differences or what have you. But this is what a lot of people are not looking at, and they're not looking at the complete science behind it. They're just saying, oh, we don't look like them, so we're not the same. It's like, come on. So I get this argument from people, and I try to tell people that you got to look deeper into the whole thing. And it doesn't change anything about what you believe as far as what black people did in this world and what happened to us. Being attached to African people is something you should be proud of, and being African is something you should be proud of when we're talking about the most copied, robbed people on the planet. And for people to want to give up the land of Africa to accept what's in Israel. What the hell is in Israel? I tell these people this all the time. What is there? Tel Aviv? We got a beach, Sharm Sheikh. Go there, you're going to get robbed probably. What's there? You want to trade that in for what's in fucking Africa? Are you kidding me? It don't make sense. So, a lot of people, some people I can understand where the argument comes in at, but the facts I don't get, like when they try to state facts that's completely nonsense to the point. When you go and look at an African person, then you go look in the mirror and you see the same people. It's the same thing, right? No two people have the same DNA unless you are identical twins. So, of course, we don't have the same DNA as African people. We don't have the same DNA. Africans have the highest level of genetic diversity amongst human beings on the planet. Plain and simple. And that's a proven fact. But I've already put out the information, Dr. Keith Chang, Dr. Jim Lee, and the genetic mutation that we have proven that everybody basically come from us. And, you're no different. I don't know why these group of people, these Hebrews, well, I know why the Hebrews want to make it as if they are a different species or completely different from African people because of the doctrine or what they doctrine teach. But it's some bullshit. And it's not even, correct. It's not correct on the level of genetics. It's not correct on a level of just reality, right? So even the biblical aspect of it, if even in your Bible it's saying if all African people or black people came from Ham, I mean, you're black, right? And they say, oh, I've seen Hebrews say we're more related to Europeans than Africans. What type of bullshit is that? So this is what we got to deal with. And I just want people to know, for the people who hit me up with this, it's so much you don't know. And we're going to get into the whole science of it because I know you're not going to take my word. So now it says here, the majority of African Americans derive their African ancestry from the approximately 500,000 to 650,000 Africans that were forcibly brought to British North America as slaves during the Middle Passage. These individuals were deported primarily from various geographic regions of Western Africa, ranging from Senegal to Nigeria to Angola. Thus, it has been estimated that the majority of African Americans derive ancestry from these geographic regions, although more central and eastern locations also have contributed. Recent studies of African and African American mitochondrial DNA, haplotype, and autosomal microsatellite markers also confirmed a broad range of Western Africa as the likely roots of most African Americans. The recent development of high-density single nucleotide polymorphism genotyping assays used primarily in genome-wide association studies has also provided unprecedented opportunities to address questions related to the evolution and migration patterns of humans. Most of the GWA studies to date have focused on European or European-derived populations of U.S. Caucasians, but a few have included minorities. The latter studies provide unique opportunities to address questions of ancestral origins in admixed populations such as African Americans and Latinos. Although the application of high-density genotyping to a broad range of worldwide indigenous populations has not yet been accomplished, an important first step has been achieved through the recent genotyping of the Human Genome Diversity Panel. This effort resulted in nearly 1,000 subjects from 51 populations being genotyped at more than 500,000 polymorphic sites. These data now provide a basic for finer scale analysis of the ancestral origins of admixed groups, such as African Americans and Latinos, in addition to enabling the accurate characterization of genetic and evolutionary relationships among these populations. Goes on to say, in this study, we characterized the African origins of African Americans by making use of the high-density genotype data generated from 94 HGDP indigenous Africans from differing geographic and linguistic groups, including 21 Mandinka from West African, 21 Yoruba from West Central Africa, 15 Bantu speakers from Southwestern and Eastern Africa, 20 Bayaka Pygmy and 12 Mbutu Pygmy from Central America, and 5 San from Southern Africa. Talk about the same people all the time. These subjects are used to represent the potential African ancestors of 136 African Americans recently genotyped in a GWA study of early onset coronary artery disease. In addition, we include 38 U.S. Caucasian subjects from advance to represent the European ancestors of the African Americans. The use of high-density SNP data of ancestral reconstruction presents some unique statistical and computational challenges. To this end, we previously developed analytic techniques for estimating individual ancestry from multiple populations, as well as for the reconstruction of ancestry blocks and admixed individuals by using data from more than 450,000 SNP genotypes. Here we provide a unique application of SABRE to identify the ancestral origins of each of the more than 450,000 genotypes in African American individuals to reduce the analysis to those genotypes that are exclusively of African origin. We note that 58 of the advanced African Americans were also participants of a cardiac study and had previously been analyzed with 42 ancestry informative markers. We also use principal components analysis to define the genetic structure and, in particular, the African genetic structure. Underlining African Americans, another recent study used principal components analysis for the African population of HEDP but did not relate those results to African Americans. To our knowledge, the analysis reported here represents the first effort to characterize the African origin of African Americans by isolating the African-derived genome in each African American individual. So if you are fucking lost, let me tell you what they did. They took an African, they took some white folks, they took some African Americans, and they basically fucking sequenced their genome. They basically did a genetic study on these people, and they isolated what would be the match for Africans and African Americans, and what would be the match for Europeans and African Americans, to see what the percentage would be in those African Americans. And then just leave it to, Africans or any black people. They said they went to different groups, right? Mandinkas and Pygmies or what have you, where they thought the majority of African American DNA would probably come from, as far as people say West Africa. But of course, we're more diverse than that. And you also got to remember, there are also some untouched, untapped tribes and areas in Africa the white man has never been to and will not set foot in. As you guys know, I've talked about this before. So we still have a bunch of, genomes and a bunch of DNA that we don't even know it's out there. We haven't even touched. So remember that. Keep that in mind as well. Results. African and European ancestry in African Americans. Principal components analysis for more than 450,000 SNPs, including all populations, Africans, African Americans, and U.S. Caucasians, revealed as expected a major separation between the African and U.S. Caucasian populations along the first principal component, PC1, whereas the second principal component led to the separation of the various African groups. The two pygmy populations, Binka, Mbuti, and the San of South Africa, are well separated from the other African groups, whereas a greater genetic affinity appears to exist between the Mandinka of West Africa, the Yoruba of Central West Africa, and the Bantu speakers, who derive from Kenya and Southwestern Africa. It is also clear in Figure 1 that the African Americans lie on that direct line between the European Americans and the West Africans, reflecting their varying levels of admixture between these two ancestral groups. Like I said, it was fucking. Final results here. It says African components of ancestry and African Americans, right? We estimate that on average, nearly 80% of the ancestry in our samples of African Americans is of African origin. Understand? 80% of the ancestry in our samples of African Americans is of African origin. A careful examination of the African component of ancestry in African Americans is facilitated by restricting the analysis to those portions of their genome that are exclusively of African origin. To do so, we used a program saver to infer European versus African-derived alleles for each individual and retain for analysis only those loci that had a high probability of harboring two African-derived alleles, while denoting the other genotype as missing. For these all subsequent analysis, we included the 128 African Americans whose estimated African ancestry exceeded 55%, based on the initial FRAP analysis methods. As a validation of the accuracy of this partitioning procedure, we performed PCA on the combined set of U.S. Caucasian, Africans, and the African Americans with putative non-African derived genotypes removed, that is, coded as missing. For comparison, we also examined the results of the same analysis, but including all of the genotype data of the African Americans. For these analyses, we included only the three African population groups that, based on the first analysis, contributed significantly to the African Americans, the Mandinka, Yoruba, Bantu. As shown previously, when all genotypes are included, the African Americans lie intermediate between the Africans and European Americans at varying distances based on their degree of admixture, which would make sense. By contrast, when only the putative African-derived genotypes in African Americans are included, the African Americans now cluster highly with the Africans, right? This result provides confidence that the application of Saber has enabled us to partition accurately the genomes of the African Americans with regard to European versus African ancestry, right? So we know what history, I talked about this before. When we go out and look at the conquests and what the Europeans did, we know they went out to these African kingdoms. And I showed you guys all the ruins of these African kingdoms. They went out there, and these were the people that were enslaved, right? Again, you got to make that whole contrast, that compare and contrast between how is it that we have this group of people in this kingdom that seem to be intelligent, had to be able to speak with these Europeans to do business with them, to do trade. And then we have the tribal Africans that was, separate. And for whatever reason, right? So we had, obviously, and when you go through history, you can see what basically happened. As I talked about before, you had tribal groups who, throughout their travels, when you travel and you go and you travel the world, and think about back then, doing trade or what have you, you're going into different countries, different households, around different people. You become more educated, you become more refined, which they call today being educated, right? So this is what happened. It's a whole class type thing. Whereas I'm dealing with different people and I'm picking up different things. And upon doing so, it's going to change me. I'm not going to be like everybody else. I'm not going to be the same person because I have so much more experience now. Because of this experience, I'm going to grow. I'm going to be different, right? So this is what happened. And then, of course, over time, that's going to happen with a lot of the people that's more in the business side of things and not so much the spiritual, right? Tribe, state, tribes. Everybody that was doing business did business. And these are the people that we had. Kingdoms, right? So, and the kingdom, that deals with a lot. So we know we had these kingdoms in Africa. And then after, gun and cannon, they basically took over. These are the people who they were bringing into America. And of course, we were already in the Americas as well. And of course, when you leave immediately, anybody who studies this, when you leave Africa, we see a DNA change immediately. So when you really dig into this whole thing and you start reading, when Africans left Africa, when they got to a different continent, like we're talking about within years, there's a genetic difference, of course, because they start eating different food. They was exposed to a different climate. Of course, a child evolving in that new different climate is going to look different. There is no biblical, holy, spooky fucking reason why we look different from them. We look different from them because Europeans were mixing in with our fucking bloodline. And we know they was doing that for the reason that they can say, dude, we're in the bloodline. It's still family. Now, if you want to lay claim to a land, especially if you using blood ties or royalty, then they can say this because they mixed in back then with those royal families, and now they have the blood ties. But once they took over completely, they cut all ties. They covered up everything. Didn't leave anything behind. Changed the look of all of these people, all these kings and royal people in Europe. They changed it around. We know the Moors ruled, right? And when, Moors talk about Moors and being Moors and all the Moorish history and everything like that, they seem to forget that Moor means black. Not only that Moor back then was interchangeable with Africans, right? So for all the Moors out there and all those people that hit me up is talking about, oh, the Moors did this and the Moors did that, what have you, and then denouncing Africa and saying, oh, there's some type of different species than African people, then why is it that Moor was interchangeable with African, right? And there was never back then any type of people believing that there was a genetic diversity between people in America and Africans in Africa. There was nobody still thinking that even in South Africa, there's a genetic difference between fucking South Africans and North Africans, right? And the genetic difference would be the difference that would be in anybody, right? You're not going to be the same genetic makeup as the nigga down the street. You're going to be different. You're not going to be the same genetic makeup as even your brother, right? Unless you're identical twins. And there's still going to be some varying differences, right? Some easily spotted differences or what have you. But that would be the closest to your DNA. But even with the Moors, it was known, right? So it says here, Moors were usually depicted as being very dark. And the word Moors was usually interchangeable with Negro, according to the Oxford English Dictionary. In regards to this, several written works can confirm this description. 16th century English playwright William Shakespeare used the word Moor as a synonym for African, and Christopher Marlowe used Moor and African interchangeably. Author and historian Chancellor Williams said the original Moors, like the original Egyptians, were black Africans. Furthermore, an Arab chronicler also described Moorish Emperor Yusuf bin Tishfin as a brown man with woolly hair. European art depicts Moors with African features, and I'm going to use quotes on this because Africa is such a diverse continent that has ethnic groups with an array of features and not a singular one. Having said that, Moors were often depicted having pitch black skin, frizzled hair, flat and wide face, flat nose, and thick lips. The Drake jewel, a rare documented piece of jewel from the 16th century, seemed to show a profile of a black king dominating the profile of a white woman. Moors have had a significant contribution to the world because they contributed in areas of mathematics, astronomy, art, cuisine, medicine, and agriculture. This, in turn, helped develop Europe to move out of the Dark Ages into the Renaissance. Generations of Spanish rulers went as far as to abolish the existence of the Moors era from historical records and dismiss the Moors making any impact on their Spanish land. However, archaeology determined that Moors indeed ruled in Al-Andalus for more than 700 years, Spain, from 711 AD to 1492. Longer than that. Let's keep it real. Here it is. You guys gotta stop the nonsense, man, and use your own damn eyes. Use your own eyes. There is no major difference from Africans and African Americans when the majority of your makeup is African, which is clear as day. You can look in the mirror and see that. I never really got into the E1, B1 and all that genetic stupid dog shit because, nigga, look in the mirror. Look in the mirror. Stop that. Stop it. We've been through too much as a people to be arguing with each other over blackness. Why is there so much hate for African people? I don't get that. By African Americans. We understand the reverse. We understand that Africans, I talked about this before, they've been taught to not like us. They tell you, hey, you go to America, stay away from African Americans. They're not the same as you. They're different. Now, you look at this, and what I just read, everything I read, you got to look at this and say, well, that's weird, right? That we have genetic proof, and we have all these researchers and scientists basically saying that most of the, African Americans, black people in America, have European DNA, right? Or what do they call us in America? Black niggas. What do they classify every African in North Africa and the people in the Middle East as? White. And I showed you guys this, that the U.S. Census classifies these people as being white. So you're going to look at these people, even in North Africa, because still a lot of black people up there. Showed you guys that in Mauritania, over in Morocco. A lot of black faces up there, a lot of dark skin we know in the Middle East or what have you. These people are classified as white by America, but not African Americans, right? They have a status as being white. So think about that. So whatever floats your boat, whatever you want to call yourself, by all means. But, to go around, and I see people put this information out on Instagram, there's videos being done, and trying to make it like it's this huge conspiracy. Oh, African Americans and Africans are not the same. Like, we're this completely different thing. And it's not even. It's not even. So obviously, you leave out of Africa immediately, your DNA is going to change when you get into a different climate and you have an offspring where you mix in with a person, specifically if it's from that land. You go to another country and, if a bunch of niggas go to China and marry some Chinese woman and have kids, yeah, the child is going to have different DNA, but the majority of that DNA is going to be African because we are the dominant. We have the dominant genetics, right? The dominant alleles, right? So we're going to be the dominant no matter what. Period, point blank. We're going to be the dominant genetics no matter who we mix with. Now, understanding genetics and knowing that, one, if black person and a white person have a baby, talked about this before as well. If a black person and a white person has a baby and that child is born, and then now that child goes and marries white, and then they have a baby, right? That baby's going to be a little bit more white. And then if that child goes to marry white, then that baby's going to come out white, right? And if that child goes and marry white, then you completely obliterate the African DNA over time, right? And it's just a white child that has some still African DNA in there, which basically is going to allow it to, be immune to certain diseases because that African is in the bloodline. And this is what happened to the Europeans today. Europeans cannot exist, and I broke this whole thing down. They could not exist in the way that they do as far as surviving under that sun if they didn't mix in with us a long time ago, because they were mutants. They were albinos. They came out that way and they mixed in with each other, meaning albino and the albino can only produce an albino. But eventually when they get a black person and they mix in, they have that baby. They get that melanin back. Now, let's say now that baby mixes in with another baby, same type, that's more white. That's still albino and albino with a little bit more melanin. And then so on and so forth, as far as mixing in with what we call white people or the Aryans or what have you. Eventually, what happened, as I said, with the Asians is going to happen with them. Over time, you're going to breed out the African and you're going to look more white, but still the African DNA is within you. All those instructions, all those codes is within you. That's going to allow you to survive a little bit longer under that sun and allow you to be a little bit more immune to certain diseases. They need to have a black man in that bloodline. It's a thing in Sweden. As I said, you go to Sweden, you're going to see a lot of Africans walking around with Swedish girls. It's a big deal. It's like a fucking designer Gucci bag to have you a black man over there if you're white and have that mixed baby. They get that shit. And it's just how it is. It's genetics, man. It's not a big fucking deal. It doesn't mean anything. It's not going to change anything tomorrow. It is what it is. At the end of the day, you're still African. You're still black, no matter how you want to look at yourself. The DNA, the genetic variation is very small. You're still predominantly of African. Now, you can go and look, and it'll tell you clear as day that Africans and African Americans, share that common ancestor being African, right? And that we basically all are. And it's just that simple. And some things are common sense, and it's not common with everybody, but it's people who have an agenda they want to push or something they want to say that want you guys to believe this. And make it like it's a big fucking conspiracy, a big deal, and it's not that deep. Understand who your people are, where you come from, and that the genetic differences in us are just that. It's just genetic differences. And you walk down the street and you see a genetic difference every single day. Plain and simple, we don't look the same. So clearly, that's a genetic difference. You don't look like your brother or your cousin, right? Our family, though. So clearly, that's a genetic difference. Right? What's the problem? Still your kin. Still your brother, right? Unless you have an identical twin. I'm a twin. I have a fraternal twin. A twin sister, right? We don't look alike. But clearly, unless you have an identical twin, you're not going to have the same type DNA, right? It's plain and simple. So it's just clear as day. So wanted to put this video out here just to clear that up real fast. Appreciate you guys taking the time to watch. And I'll address some things in the next video, but I want to say this for anybody who made it towards the end of the video. I appreciate you guys. But yes, a lot of people asking about Merkabah Scholar Society and MPA. And I said this and I broke this down. First of all, Merkabah Scholar Society is completely different from MPA, and I broke that whole thing down. And it's a lot of people who obviously wasn't paying attention to their emails or they wasn't watching their videos, and it's people coming out of the woodwork, coming out of nowhere because they seeing me posting more and they seeing the videos back up. And they trying to, jump back in there. Hey, and that's one of the reasons why Merkabah Academy was done away with. Well, it'll be back. It'll be back in a different capacity. But nobody was on there. It's like the same 6-8 people on there. And I'm doing so much. I'm trying to develop so many different things. So much was going on. I couldn't really be on there that much myself. But I made the site for you guys to meet like-minded people and come together and talk about stuff. And I tried to make it something a little bit different from the social media experience that we have right now to make it more conscious. And I succeeded with Merkabah Scholar Society in that capacity because it's way better. And people didn't support. People wasn't there. And I was able to then just put it out. You had NPA and Never Pay Again, and you get all the videos and everything like that. And I was able to put it out, and it wasn't a problem, but I wasn't getting the support for that whole thing. And then when my situation happened, there was no support, there was no help and all that. So, this is why I did the society, and me just realizing that, you can't do everything all the time. And that was at my own dime, my own dollar. I was paying for all that. I didn't care about bandwidth and everything that happened before. I was just knocking that out because, it wasn't an issue. But now I had to be more smart and, and get some help for this whole thing and get people to help pay for everything that this entails with Merkabah Scholar Society. So I talked about this before. I put the whole video out. Like I said, I drew the line. Everybody who crossed that line, who stepped with me, who understood what's going on and what this is about, they crossed the line. They are here in the society, and they've been in the society with the whole thing since it started. But for a lot of the people who was in Merkabah Academy, you guys, I sent everybody an email, multiple emails, did multiple videos. I sent you guys the link. Now, for people, I don't understand. Like, shit happens. I don't control the world. So I even set the proof up there. Now, Podia changed their rules as far as the amount of emails I can send out, as far as like keep sending this stuff out. So I backdoored the whole thing and made it so you guys can get into the mailing list by being a part of a certain project. And it was $9.99. I send the email to everybody. Whenever you get a chance, pay $9.99. And then you'll have ties to any new stuff that comes out. And that'll be the end of it. That's how we get around the email situation. And people, oh, you trying to scam and this and that. You trying to get, like, come on, man. $10. Like, $10. It's not even that many of you people. It's not even that big of a deal. But everybody got to fucking wear tinfoil and think it's some type of scam or conspiracy whenever money is involved. That's why I hate doing shit with money. But it was to benefit you so that you can get access to all the new videos. So now you have people who are fucking years late. Oh, I can't get the videos from NPA, or I can't get the videos from Podia, when I sent the emails out multiple times for you guys to be able to get those videos. Multiple times. So now coming up, there's a bunch of new videos. So if you pay the $9.99, if you have access to your Podia still, those new videos are there, and new videos are coming up. Bible series, all kinds of videos are coming. Mystery school, all kinds of videos are going to be coming out. And that's where you're going to be able to access those things, those videos there. That doesn't change. I'm going to keep my promise on that. So if you are an NPA member, when those videos release, you will not have to pay for those. Merkabah Scholar Society is completely different. We have a plan here. We're working towards something. All those videos are involved as far as the esoteric information I talk about. We're going to be getting to that in the society as well as some other stuff. But right now, we just concentrating and focusing on benefiting from what's to come, right? Plain and simple. Making sure you guys make enough money and be able to generate money to basically, live like I live, to do what I do, or better, right? To be comfortable and not have to worry about fucking going to work in the rat race and all that type of shit. I don't want you guys to be stressed about money. So that's what we're focusing on right now. Because once you get that out the way to where you're financially free, then you can focus on consciousness. You can focus on your studies and developing yourself in, other ways as far as, getting your spirituality correct and where you want to be at spiritually, right? Consciously. Have a sound mind, man. I don't know how some of you people do it, man. I couldn't do it. I couldn't get up in the morning and go to work. I'm sorry. I did it before, but I couldn't do it in these years of my life. Like, you work hard when you're young, so when you get here, I'm not old, I'm only 43. But even still, I never saw myself going to work in my 40s. Like, fuck no, you kidding me? I know too much. And this is why I try to give you guys this information and put so much out there to help you guys out. And it's like, people don't understand it takes work, but it takes time and money. You got to invest in yourself to get there. Like, this is like, what's wrong with y'all? It's no fucking scam. Like, I don't give a shit. I don't care at all. I don't have one iota of care to scam somebody out of a fucking dime. Like, it's not that deep. I know how to make money. So there's no way I'm trying to scam people out of, like, what did I give you guys that's a fucking scam? Other than information on how to make money and better and benefit yourself. Knowledge on how to grow spiritually. Knowledge on your fucking past, your history, your legacy, everything we've done on this planet, right? And then, knowledge is free. You ain't got to pay for knowledge. but you pay to go to school. You pay to go to college, right? You're proud of that. Oh, look, I paid the white man $100,000 to get a piece of paper. Now I can't get a job because nobody's taking this bullshit ass degree, right? Fucking YouTubers on here, little kids making millions of dollars a year, but you bullshit. You don't even want to spend the money to make a little bit of money, right? Everybody got a complaint, man. I hate money. I really do. I wish we didn't have to use it. I just hate it because it brings out the worst in people. And when it brings out the negativity to a point where a person don't want to do something to benefit them, that's a problem. That's a problem. But yeah, I digress on that whole thing. But for the people who are still not clear about what NPA and Merkabah Scholar Society is, it's two different things. So if you are an NPA member, then you'll still get the new videos that come out as far as Mystery School and the Bible series and ancient religions or what have you. You guys still get that. But Merkabah Scholar Society, we have our own videos completely unique for us and what we're doing and everything like that. So you guys won't get that. And you're on standby for Merkabah Academy. Merkabah Academy was never a part of the deal. NPA means never pay again for digital download. So you had access to Podia and all those videos. Now, as far as for Merkabah Scholar Society, the reason why, if you guys click that link and you've seen, it's a difference when you join. You can either get all of the past videos, over 100 and something videos, and when you join, or you don't have to get all those videos. And I had to do it this way because there's no, people are crooked as fuck. You guys know this. If I added the videos, then people would pay the low price and they'll download all the videos and then they'll fucking cut their card off. They'll stop. They'll fucking put a cancel on the membership and then that's it. Now they got all those videos. Instead of paying $300 for it, they got it for $60 or whatever the fucking price is, or $18, whatever it is, right? So I had to do it that way. No knock on the members, but I have it so for people in the society, once you make like 5 or 6 dues payments or something like that, you guys will have access to it on the app, and that's coming soon. So the people that's been with the society since the beginning, you guys will have access to all the previous videos coming soon when that whole part is complete on the app. So no worries on that. It's just in the beginning, anybody joining that's new, unless you pay for that, all those videos, then you won't have them until a few months later after you make a certain amount of payments. And I do it that way because people are crooked, and I've had it happen to me. I've been scammed so many times, like it's crazy. It's crazy. But it is what it is on that. But yeah, thanks for taking the time to watch and ran on, right? Whenever I usually get the same questions over and over again, I said this before, I always put out a video. And this was something that kept coming up. A lot of people was asking me about, and I wanted people to just know. And like, again, in my mind, people know this shit. I'm thinking like, of course they know. Don't they know this? And I'm like, people don't really know. They just repeating the same shit that's online. They're repeating the same stuff. And this is what happened. So here it is. I make this video, let people know. And of course, you guys, go do your own research. Go look it up. But this is basically what you're going to find. None of us have the same damn DNA, man. None of us. So, of course, we're going to have different DNA from Africans. We're going to have a completely different genome from Africans. We're African Americans. We're in a whole completely different climate. We eat different food, right? It is what it is. So it's not that big of a deal, right? We still come from kingdoms. We still come from the original man. We still are who we are. Doesn't change that much. Genetically, you're just a little bit different. It doesn't mean you're inferior in no way. It doesn't take away anything. It is what it is. But understand the truth of it all before you guys put out this information as if we are some type of completely different creature. Stop it. But yeah, when the Hebrews were saying, oh, we're more closely related to Europeans than Africans, now we know that's bullshit because still the majority of your DNA goes back to Africa, and it's bullshit. So whether you accept it or not, that's the facts. This is the facts. But yeah, thanks for taking the time to watch. See you guys next video. Peace.